See how that goes.
Yeah.
Okay. With your view of divine violence in the Bible, do you think it mirrors some of the ways violence in the name of God is justified today?
Yeah, oh yeah. All over the place. You know, America was largely conquered under the conquest paradigm. The early preachers specifically referred to Joshua and the Israelites, the Canaanites, and they saw the indigenous population as the new Canaanites. And some of them took that literally. That some they thought that, but if God, just as God commanded Joshua to slay them all, so God's telling us to slay them all. And so it was all conquered in that paradigm. All the Christian violence. In fact, Phil Jenkins makes the case that all Christian violence throughout church history was motivated by violent texts because you had to appeal to something, to get your soldiers to go out and kill and torture heretics and the rest. And it's really hard to do that on the basis of Jesus, love your enemies and, pray for those who despitefully use you. And so you just skip over Jesus and appeal to these texts, which is why the church has tremendous flexibility on exegetical techniques and finding meanings and stuff. They're always open to a plurality of meanings for all these different verses. Um, and it had no constraints on it. This has to be literal, except when it came to those violent texts. They had to be literal. And that's why, starting with Origen, and it actually started with Justin Martyr in the second century, Origen, third century, John Cassian. These guys were all looking at the Old Testament and were finding other ways of interpreting it non-violently. Um, Usually using allegory to do it because that was a respected exegetical technique back then. But as soon as Constantine comes into power and the church starts help running the Roman Empire, well, now the church has to justify violence. And that's where Augustine comes up with his just war theory. Sometimes it's justified. And then, because that's what allows you now to command Christian soldiers to go out there and do battle. So there's a little protective, which is why when I come along and say, hey, maybe we don't have to, take the surface meaning of it as being God's intended meaning. Maybe there's a deeper meaning. A lot of people are like, what? You can't do that. Because we have a whole tradition of not doing that. When it comes to these things, it's amazing how much we instinctively take literal or not literal. Even the people who say, I believe in a literal Bible, the whole thing's literal. Well, they don't believe that God has smoke coming out of his nose or that he's literally throwing thunderbolts and all the rest. They instinctively, see that as a metaphor. But we're not trained to do that with these other texts.
Mhm.